No session. Well, Pavan, thanks for actually having me here. I want to say that.
And thanks for flying over and everything. It's such an honor.
Yeah. And I got to say, everyone around you is nice and energetic, and I love that.
Especially Sam. Right?
I feel like I've known Sam for 20 years. So
that's great.
Thanks again. And I love what you're doing, by the way, with AngelAi, the background with the tech. I'm always fascinated, naturally, by people that do things that I don't do or don't understand fully. And I think all of us have that inside of us. All of us want to learn more about the other person, which is why I have no idea why in the hell I'm here. Because to me, I'm like vanilla.
Yeah, well, not to me. I mean, you're, producing shows and movies and all this talent that you're around. To me, that's incredibly fascinating. Like, you're able to nurture so much talent and help them get to the top. And like, we had dinner with Jeff Timmons last night, and he told us the story about how him and his brother literally, crashed in your house. Like, they would have been homeless without you, and that's it. Like, that's your magic touch, your blessings, and Jeff is where he's at today. Yeah,
I think, again, I'm just lucky to be around good people. I pride myself, unlike a lot of people say, oh, you don't want to come off as being naive. I've gotten more done being naive than most people do. And like you and like a lot of others, sometimes I think we get in our own way. I'm all about just jumping in the pool and not knowing how to swim. Because I believe in myself and the others around me, actually more than myself, that things are going to work out. The Jeff story is great because I had never been to California before, and I got in the car one day and drove cross country. And at that time, it was a long drive, I couldn't go home if I wanted to. I couldn't even afford gas to go back home. So it was one of these situations like, well, what are you going to do now? You're here in California. Like a lot of people at that time, didn't know what I was doing, didn't know where to live, and things worked out because you hustle. You have to hustle when you hustle. And I'll never forget those days. Not to bore you, but I'm the oldest of many kids. I think my father collected wives and children growing up. So I have a lot of brothers and one sister, and I'm the oldest. And I've always just embraced everyone around me. So when I came cross country, I didn't really know what to expect. At that time, I get a phone call from a 12-year-old brother, and he says, Eric, I have to get serious about my career. I'm like, you're 12. He said, well, I'm coming to LA to live with you. And I'm like, don't. Next thing I know, I've got custody of my brother. We're living in a part of Los Angeles, probably not the best part to live in. And then comes Jeff and another group of guys from Ohio. And it was probably one of the best times of my life. None of us knew what we were doing. But it was the idea, we have to do this, we have to do this. My brother, when he was 12, started getting involved in entertainment. I was forced to learn the industry. And I did, and he went on to star in, well, I'll never forget his first role. And again, it was, one of his first roles was the lead in the Three Ninjas films. And I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
He played Rocky in the Three Ninjas. And after that, trial and error, he was only 12. And we had to learn what to do. He had to learn how to work in the industry. But one thing that was instilled upon him and everyone I know, be true to yourself. Be nice to everybody. Because the world or life, not to get philosophical, but to me it's circles. You're going to go up, you're going to go down. You're going to go up, you're going to go down. The question is, how big do the circles get in your lifespan? Hopefully, I mean, we've all been up and down, I would think. And if you haven't been down, I think you should go down sometimes. Because it's like light. How do you appreciate the light without darkness? I embrace both. I actually like it when it's dark. I like it when it's light. So, but yeah, it's just life's about that. And we're lucky because the same people that we've been friends with or worked with over the years, in some capacity, we're still friends. We have a relationship we still work with today. So I've known Jeff and the guys for over 20 years. My brother's been working as an actor now. I think he's a set designer, but but at least he's been exposed to things, and I've just been lucky that way. I didn't know anything about the industry. My first job was with a news corporation, and again, I'm gonna talk about other people because I'll tell you how I got in, not knowing anything, but I'll never forget the company I worked with was located across the street from Paramount Studios. And I remember every day looking at Paramount. And similar to Sam's story, I said, I want to be there. I want to be there. I'm going to do whatever I can to be there. The company I worked with, I didn't realize at the time, was a cesspool or a great environment for growing talent. At that time, we had talent like Anderson Cooper started out there, Lisa Ling, Serena Altschul. I mean, the list goes on. And the mentality was take the tools that we have here. It was an educational program, educational news for a young audience, and grow, learn it, and move on. And honestly, I saw there was a closet. It was literally a storage closet. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to put a desk in that closet. And I did. Cleared out the closet, started out as an assistant, learned how to wrap cable, no ego, learn. And just in time, people, I think they thought I was more important than I was. And I wasn't important. I was learning from everybody else. But this studio had full-time editors, camera, a great staff, great people. So I thought, wow, you guys have such talented people. And you reach, there's over 800,000 teenagers every day. I started calling up all the studios, the record labels, and said, hey, I want to interview your talent. And I'm going to get them exposed on this network. Well, I didn't realize at that time the brands wanted that because it was exposing the brand to a teen audience. So before you knew it, the company gave me the leeway to do that. And the people around me said, do it, do it, do it. So I just used what was there, and I just started literally knocking on the doors at the studios, having lunch every day at the studio, and learning, and haven't looked back, which led to other opportunities.
So this was News Corp, the company.
It was
News Corp.
It was what that company at the time, it was called, this is going back, and I'm trying not to date myself, but it was owned by Whittle Communications, which was based out of Tennessee. It was a company called Channel One News.
Okay, gotcha.
And they were broadcast at that time, it's before the internet. The way the company worked, it was divided into, they would give classrooms around the United States satellite dishes and VCRs and so on, and you would have to watch 12 minutes of news, and they would give you this equipment. And in addition to the 12-minute newscast, there was 2 hours of educational programming. It was called the Classroom Channel.
Gotcha.
And that's where the
What a
guys-
great company, because they actually encouraged someone to do their own thing and experiment and try, because so many companies do the opposite. They stop you from being innovation.
Pavan, it's so funny you say that because I'm a strong believer in that.
Yeah,
and it hasn't changed. I mean, working over the years, a lot of people try to hoard contacts, or they try to do this, do that. I'm all about, here's what I have, learn, share, because 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to learn more from the people around me, taking what I'm exposed to. And I've heard stories where other people have done this, but growing up, my grandmother would always hang pictures on the wall at different areas. And I thought to myself, Grandma, is this because everyone's short that we have to look at the same picture? And my grandma was like, no, everyone can see the same picture. But if you look at it from a different angle, you're going to get different interpretations of that photograph, different appreciation of the photograph. And that's the way I look at everything. It's just like I might see something one way, but somebody else might see it another way. And sometimes the way they see it might be better. So I think it's good to just provide an opportunity or the playing field for people to look at life differently and see what they do with it. And another thing at that time, Channel One News at the time was using tech, meaning they were using the satellite dishes, they were using and delivering it, and they welcomed incorporating entertainment with technology, which I can't stress enough. And I know in today's climate, in Hollywood especially, and I don't think this is a secret, I mean, over the past few years since COVID, there's been the Screen Actors Strike, there's been a writer's strike, the IATSE, there's a lot always going on. But I'd say it's been more of an interesting environment the last few years than the last 25 years. And I don't know what tomorrow lies or brings, but I will say different unions have their stance on technology. Mine mirrors, I think, some, but not all. I believe in embracing technology, embracing the latest knowledge, and incorporating it, even from an artistic standpoint, incorporating into what we do already. Again, I'm a fan of tech, and I'm a fan of what you're doing, actually. So.
Oh, tech makes you better. Right?
Usually.
Nothing that we have today would exist if we didn't leverage technology, we
Right.
didn't leverage science. And more importantly, if we didn't leverage our minds. That's all tech is an application of your mind to do more than what your two hands can do.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, and I think what you're doing, even with the mortgage industry, with AngelAi, it's you're allowing a platform for tech to kind of mix in experience,
Yeah.
knowledge, and to make navigating easier. When I first moved to Los Angeles, there was a thing called the Thomas Guide.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you
remember
guys
that.
are
I
familiar.
used to use those.
Yeah.
I use those.
They were like phone books, right?
Right, yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times where I had a problem reading that phone book. I'd be like, where am I going? Okay, I'm going down one street in particular, it's called Pico.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Pico Boulevard goes forever.
I know Pico Boulevard, yes.
And I, again, being a naive guy, would get lost all the time on the Thomas Guide because it'd be an address on Pico. I didn't know there was a difference between this end of Pico and that end of Pico, and but now you just type in an address in GPS,
Gets you there.
and he gets you there much safer too,
Yeah.
than following that Thomas Guide at the time. So,
Yeah, I used to have an LA book and an Orange County book in my car, and I got really good at it, zipping through it. I actually, being a tech guy, this is an interesting story. I actually resisted GPS
really,
because I just found Thomas Guides to be simpler.
so similar. So you would rather go the old.
Yeah, well, because especially in the early days of GPS, half the time it would lose the satellite signal. It's not like today where it works all the time, no matter where you are. Back then, it was like searching for satellite. I was like, I'm just going to use the Thomas Guide.
Right? Actually, I'm the opposite. I always had a hard time using the Thomas Guide. So it's just like, because to me, that Thomas Guide was so confusing. And then driving, then the days of the pager, where you'd have an appointment, it's like, oh gosh, I got to find a payphone.
Yeah,
I
remember that.
But I wouldn't change those days for anything.
Yeah.
But it is an example. Sometimes that can make things easier and more productive. And I had heard you say in the past, and I couldn't agree more, the importance of time.
Yeah.
Time is the one factor. I don't care what you do or who you are, you can't change time. And I've been blessed that I've worked with some very interesting people over the years. And I have so many stories that there's not enough time in these cards to actually go into. But what I love is the fact that you're taking, with tech, you can kind of control time a little bit more than you ever have been able to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the whole idea is to give you time back.
Yes.
Right. And the analogy I give is where technology gives you time back is a washing machine. Right. Before washing machines, you had to wash clothes and dishes by hand, and that took hours and hours. Right. And simple technology, and all that time is coming back to the family. And this type of this kind of AI technology is giving back many hours every day of time back to everybody. And that's a proper use of technology is when it can touch everyone's lives and everyone gets a little bit extra time, right? And because then you could use the time for more productive things. I think what families need these days is spending more time with their kids and teaching their kids and educating them and preparing them for their lives. There's been, like both parents working, and by the time you get home, the kids, leave school at 3 and the parents don't get home until 6, right? And so they're on their own for 3 hours. And then when they come home, they're busy doing paperwork and all this other stuff. And it's like, when does the family get together? When does the family actually connect? So no wonder there's so many social problems these days, because there's this total fragmentation.
Yeah. I agree, though. It's just like, so to embrace. How do you feel? I'm just curious here. How do you feel about tech and AI? Obviously, I know how you feel about it, but I mean, like, even crossing facets beyond finance, like into entertainment. How do you think it should be approached?
I think there's a number of problems in entertainment, like the deepfake problem, and there's contractual issues, like who owns the rights to the actor's image and the actors, like if you were in a film, right, and the studio now owns the rights to that film, right, and now they reuse that content to create a new avatar of you, which they can't easily do that. is that a violation of the, are they within their rights to do it or not? And that's really kind of unknown areas. And I think the existing contracts that actors have signed probably does not give them any royalties for the film industry reusing the content that they've already signed away. So I think there's a whole new problem, and new contracts have to be created, new agreements about AI generated avatars.
Right.
Yeah, AI generated avatars based on the content you'd already given. So there's some huge questions that have to come up. But I think at the same time, I think what we're seeing is a change of guards. The old industry is going to, I hate to say this, disappear, and a new industry is forming. Just like how social media and YouTube has basically killed television. Right, television ratings are collapsed. Right,
yeah.
and everyone's watching real content made by real people on social media, and people going for the short 15-20 second TikTok kind of stuff, and that's more entertaining than TV shows.
Ben-Hur.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and I think in the AI world, it's going to be like that. Like, I think people are going to be new generation content creators is the human and the AI working together to create new, interesting content. I don't think it's going to be, I think just pure AI generated content is too easy to spot.
Right.
It's too boring, right? It's cool the first time you see it, but the 10th time, it's AI and you don't want to, and it is boring. Right, but I think it's going to be this whole new industry of humans and AI working together to create like mind-blowing new content that's people are going to want to consume.
I agree with that, and I also agree with. I'm not saying AI should replace the artist, or the image, or the performer, but I think it can be used in conjunction, with that artist and the performer, and I do think. I think they can complement each other well. For example, I don't think AI should necessarily write scripts, but I do think they can serve as an aid to the writer. And I think there is that combination. Yeah. And even when it comes to creating content, I mean, most of the shows I do, and I'm known for producing, I would say mostly stunt and illusion. And I'm a believer in that if you can create a world using what I'll call practical magic, or even enhanced magic, and magic being everything from an illusion to just telling a story, I think the two can work together, and it's fine. And I think they complement each other well. I think, and you've already touched upon this, when you get to the point where you take a step back and you let AI generate or duplicate a person, or let AI, or even people that haven't created a brand, be it a product or a person, to duplicate that without going through the creation process is wrong. So I think there's a lot of legalities to work out, but I do think it's going to overall enhance productivity and respect time.
Yes, and I'm not so worried about duplicating somebody else's intellectual property using AI, because there's already the existing laws in place already protect that.
Right.
Mostly protect that. There's some gray areas that are being litigated right now in the courts, and we'll see where that falls. But 99% the existing tort laws already protect things, protect you against deepfakes and so forth. But where I see the entertainment industry is headed with AI is, and also the need, like this TikTok generation where everyone just has this short attention span. And part of the reason why these short 15-second shorts and stuff work so well is because it's almost like a video game. Like you watch something, you flip and watch something else. You're in control over the feed, right? You're in control over your next experience. Okay, so I really think all of that coming together and AI getting merged into video games, where now you have AI, what they call NPCs, non-player characters, right? Where the characters in the video game acting like independent, like
beings.
Yes, exactly. They're not dumb. They're smart, and I think basically entertainment is headed towards the video game industry, and I think it's going to be less movies, less TikTok, less all that, and big budget video games. And
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm on the ride. I really don't know. But I will say, from a very simple practical application of AI, one of the shows I'm producing is fascinating character. It's about this kid, I call everyone kid, about this kid whose grandfather passed. And his grandfather was a surgeon and a traveler, and he traveled the world looking for alternative medicines. Well, he passed, but he left his journal to his grandson. His grandson's been on all 7 continents trying to retrace his grandfather's footsteps. So for the show, we took a sampling of his grandfather's voice, just a sampling from an old tape recorder, and with the permission, of course, of the family, and regenerated the grandfather's voice to tell the story with his grandson. And I couldn't do that 5-10 years ago. And it's definitely complemented the production and the storytelling.
Yeah. Well, we could take that one step farther and kind of, there's a danger of AI when we're talking about, with Banachek, about mediums not letting you detach from who you've lost. They've already done this, where you can take a person's picture, video, old video, social media content, all the content about that person, throw it into the AI, and it creates the avatar. I mean, Sam's got an avatar created for himself, and you talk to the avatar, and it's like talking to the same person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now here's another example of, it's like a medium, you can say.
Right.
Right. And done with high tech, and now you can literally be having a conversation with, whoever passed away, and trick your mind to believing they're there right there in that computer.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
But that gets a little shaky. It's like,
Yeah.
but again, in the case that you're talking about, obviously he did it. He gave permission to do it. He created, in a
Yeah.
sense,
Right.
cloned himself.
Yes, exactly.
Using technology.
Yes.
Which,
Yeah.
even the medical cloning, that we're still going through that debate and
exactly.
debacle. But
Right.
but it is science. It is progress.
Right.
The question
Right.
is,
It's like with any tool. It's how do you apply it, and should
Right.
you apply it?
Right.
It's, again, a gun can be a tool, or it could be a weapon.
Right.
It's how do you use it?
Right.
It doesn't inherently, it's not evil. It's how you use it. So, so tell me, like, okay, so you were, you're working in this news organization, and surrounded by great talent, right? Like Anderson Cooper and all these other people that were you actually working with them?
yes, but what I liked, the whole environment when we were there together, and Anderson has his own story, fascinating one as well, by the way. What that environment gave me is, it just hit me like a brick wall. I was like, wait a minute, I'm here, I'm surrounded by things I couldn't do on my own. I couldn't afford on my own. There was a studio there. I noticed that there were editors working, but they were just producing at the time a short news program. But the rest of the day they had free. So it was about recognizing the tools that I was surrounded by and using them to do more. And like I said, I would literally at that time, and I applaud the being naive, walk across the street. Back then you could pretty much walk onto any studio lot. Today security is crazy, but I remember just walking over there, looking at the guys, waving like as if I belonged there. Not conning them, but just walking in.
Right.
And every day I would sit in the cafeteria and watch people and overhear conversations. Not eavesdrop, but just kind of get the vibe. And from that, I just, like a sponge, took what I learned, everything from the lingo to this to that, and kept going there. And eventually that led to doing one thing Paramount had at the time, they had movie releases coming out, big movies like Titanic and so on. And we ended up eventually forming a relationship where we did the making of Titanic, which is before Titanic came out. So Paramount, this big studio, which I've loved, of course right now they might be being sold, but iconic studio, we ended up doing a partnership where we did kind of behind the scenes look, a 2-hour special. And I think Leo DiCaprio was in that film. And we had this 2-hour live special, but it gave, being naive and walking onto the lot gave an opportunity to actually learn more and do more. Years later, the company I work with ends up, or work closely with, Leo's actually managed by. So what I realize is relationships start in anything at a young point in time, but if you keep the relationships and just be true to yourself, things grow. So after Channel 1, I ended up being exposed to some people in game shows, talk shows, stunt. Pretty much I would say yes to everything to embrace the knowledge until I started writing and pitching and producing our own shows. But the stories are endless along the way. I think my story is one about just embracing everything and learning from it. Always being respectful, though. I've got to I think if you open yourself up to opportunity, you never know what's going to happen. And it's a cliche term, but you never regret the things you do, only the things you don't do. I live by that. And, you know, going back to Jeff, a funny story. When we first moved to LA, and, you know, for those that don't know, Jeff started a group called 98 Degrees, and it's a multi-platinum group, and at the time, I just see us as friends, dumb kids from the Midwest, but I'll never forget doing things like going back to a studio conversation. In the early days, we were up at Disney, and I'll never forget walking in to Disney, looking at the guys at the front, security guards saying, "Oh, they're fine, they're with me." First of all, I have no power. I don't know why they're letting me in. They're like, "Oh yeah, let them in." We went walking in, but I had read, and I'm a huge fan of research, and I had read that, oh, there's a casting director on the studio lot that's also from the Midwest. She must like us. Again, being naive, I just assume everyone's going to like everybody, you know. So we go walking in. This is a funny story because we found her trailer, and outside, and I don't know if Jeff told you the story or not, but outside is a guys, come on, sing a song, sing a song. So they started singing a song. Casting director swings open the door, comes out and says, "You guys, what are you doing? Come with me." And I was like, uh-oh, she's going to like us or hate us. So we go walking up to this big boardroom in front of Disney. I think she assumed I was one of the singers. I couldn't sing a tune to save my life. So before you know it, we're up there singing in front of a board of creatives. And again, I don't know anything about the industry. They start singing a song. I think the song was My Girl. I didn't know what to do. I'm standing there with them. It's like, who am I? What am I doing here? I started lip syncing the song. And one of the funniest, most embarrassing moments was I'm lip syncing, singing My Girl, but I'm getting into it. I'm on one knee, and I'm like, the song stops.
And you keep on going.
Oh, my lips are still moving, and I'm owning it. So this was before karaoke was even a thing. I'm like, yeah, My Girl. Everyone looks at me and starts laughing. But the moral of the story being, no, I never was in the group, never wanted to be in the group, but I didn't know what to do with myself. Who was this third wheel here?
Yeah.
And they ended up being cast on a very popular TV show as a result of just trying something new. And I have so many stories of this that happened over time. Another time in front of the Tonight Show, and I was telling Sam the story earlier. It was, I'll never forget, it was when my brother's movie premiered the same year, El Nino. And I was driving a Suzuki Samurai at the time, convertible. So, the truth is, someone stole the roof. It was parked outside where I lived. Somebody stole the roof off our car. It was pouring down rain. And people thought, oh, that's so cool. You guys are so this, so that. It might look cool to you. We were cold. We were hungry. We didn't know what we were doing. But I remember, you know, the guys at the time in the group, we drove in front of the Tonight Show. And I said, guys, get out, just sing a song. They jumped out of the car, started singing for the audience. They were nabbed up immediately, brought inside. The funny part about the story is, again, they were invited in to open up for Jay Leno pretty much. A year later, I think it was Mulan or one of the movies came out, and they were actual guests as platinum artists on the Tonight Show. So again, it's just an example how, and I don't think Jay remembered meeting him originally, but it's just an example of sometimes it's okay to throw it out there. And I think as long as your intention and drive is good, things are going to work out.
Yeah. But a lot of those stories, I'm assuming, back when you were a kid.
Yes, they were. But even today, I still pride myself on just trying anything.
Well, yeah, it's like you showing up, like, what is this AI company that you learned about out of nowhere, and you showing up and so generously time and chatting with me?
Well, I think the secret is just being open and being willing to listen and learn. And I think that's the same with anything. Learning. And if you can surround yourself by people that embrace learning or tools that enhance learning, I think it's a good place to be, a good world to live in. So, so as far as next steps, and again, we're in Las Vegas now, and I do go back and forth. I'm based in Los Angeles. I am in Vegas a lot. I don't gamble, well, unless for fun. But it's just, having met some of the people I work with, some of the people have shows here in Vegas, some of them have syndicated TV shows and everything else, but they all share, I'm lucky to say they all share one thing in common, even as an artist. And I'm not calling myself an artist, but I would say an artist, to me, a good artist, has just as much a creative mind as a business mind. And every artist I know that does well embraces both. So
Yeah.
that's it. But
mostly, what I'm taking away from your story is you embrace the chase. Like you take risk, you don't hold back, and you just try it, and you're not afraid of rejection.
No, as a short guy growing up in the Midwest, rejection is like a way of life. I can't tell you about my dating life, but it was all about the numbers. So I think you're right. You have to, in a sense, be fearless and respectful at the same time. And luckily, knock on wood, that's led to, I would say, good things. People always say, why are you so happy? Why this, why that? I'm definitely a glass is half full kind of guy. Because with my background, I mean, I was in the Marine Corps. I've done things that, looking back, I don't know how I did it, and I think it's because I just welcome a challenge. I think we all have it in us. And I think, at least with most success people I know, including yourself, when you look at the person you're talking to, if they surround themselves and welcome and embrace others, everyone wins. And that's I'm the luckiest guy in the world, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I got to back up now. You were in the Marine Corps right out of high school?
No. I'll tell you a little story about the Marines. So at the time, it's not meant to be self-deprecating, but it is. I don't want you to get the wrong idea thinking I'm a shallow person and I don't want to call anyone out. But I had always respected anyone that serves, or anyone that believes they should stand up for something. Right or wrong, if you were to compare me with a cartoon character, I would, in my head, maybe Mighty Mouse. but because again, I definitely might have a Napoleonic complex where I think I can do anything. And even when I fail, I still think I won. So that's a great way to go through life. My wife says, it's called being stupid. I'm like, no, it's called seeing the glass is half full. So at the time, when I enlisted, Dan Quayle was getting grief. This was during the elections, and Dan Quayle was getting grief for being in the National Guard during Vietnam. Now, Vietnam was before my time, but I thought, how can you say he's getting grief for being in the National Guard during Vietnam? And I realized people thought he avoided the war by being in the Guard, which I don't know. I don't think that's true or not. I respect anyone that serves. So I thought to myself, well, one, if I enlist, no one's going to say I avoided a war by joining the Marine Corps. Number two, I had left university to join, and I thought, well, I want to go in, but I want to go in deliberately as a grunt, which, if you're familiar with an 0311, an 0311 is an infantryman. They have the reputation, which is not true, of being bullet stoppers. So the first ones in. They're just the ones who kind of push in. It's like, I want to be that guy. And everyone's like, why do you want to be that guy? I was like, I just do. And I had a girlfriend at the time who I absolutely admired and loved, and I won't say names, but I thought it would be easier to put my name in and go to war than break up with her. So I think I feared her more than dying at the time. And the Gulf War was about to start. So I put my name in early to leave, and I went to Paris Island, which a lot of people go to, and it was probably one of the better things I'd ever done. Not so much about the physical or this, that. I think anyone can do anything when they put their mind to it. But it was more about an experience that I never would have thought I would do. And there's millions of others that are much more accomplished in the Corps than I was. And I admire them even more. I've had the pleasure, even my mentors, bringing back to what I do today. I've met so many people that have served. And they're just great people. They have that grit, one of the mentors who brought me onto a successful show, I would say, that I work with still today, it's with a gentleman named Dr. Phil, but someone that is on his team I had met. Didn't realize after I met him, he's an older gentleman. He did serve in Vietnam. He's a Purple Heart recipient. Amazing human being. And when I met him, it's another example about circumstance. He had called me up, he heard about me, and he wanted me to direct a smaller show. He's like, Eric, you got to do this show. I was like, I did it, directed it, I loved it. At the end of season 1, and it was a small show for one of the smaller networks, he calls me in his office, Eric, you're fucking up the industry. And I'm like thinking to myself, I love my job. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And he closes his door. He's like, you're being underpaid. And he goes, it's my job to pay you, and you're making me look bad. So he gave me a big raise. Mm-hmm. We got picked up for a second season at the time. And I won't say his name, but this guy's still around today, one of the nicest guys I've learned. But I found out after the fact that he served in the Navy, Purple Heart, I think it was the Navy, I should know this, Purple Heart recipient, one of the nicest guys in the world. But he embraced the spirit of giving me a chance. He didn't know who I was from Adam, but he gave me the chance, and I did something. And to be honest with you, my wife hates this, the agents I work with hate this. He didn't have to pay me more. I love what I do.
Yeah,
yeah. But he recognized that. So even things I did in the past, like the military, I'm blessed to still work with people in the military today that I've worked with years ago or known years ago. And even that person now is the executive in charge of Dr. Phil, and we still maintain a relationship. But I would call him one of my mentors because he gave me my first directing job in town. I loved every minute of it. And at that time, it was a hard show. We were shooting 1 episode a day. It was unscripted. I was running around like a chick with my head cut off. I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest with you, but I learned while I was doing it, and I loved it. And the talent, great talent at the time, he's a celebrity and still friends with today. So it's about embracing opportunity to me.
It basically making opportunity out of everything.
Everything.
Yeah. Right.
Everything.
So high school, university, you drop out of university, join the Marines.
And about here.
And then from there you drove to?
Well, after the Corps, drove to California. Had custody of a 12-year-old, legal custody of a 12-year-old, and friends, living in a 1-bedroom apartment, worked in news, started producing a lot of game show, a lot of stunt and illusion, and I've been blessed to work with some of the greatest illusionists in the world, which is how I met Banachek.
Yeah.
So everything is connected.
And I have to say, just like the Matrix, the spoon's not real, bend your mind, right?
So that's it. But I want to say thanks.
Thank you. What a story! What an amazing story.
Well, again, I'm a fan of everybody else's story, which is why I love being here.
This is a wonderful story. Wasn't expecting the twists and turns in this story.
Well, I think the next chapter is even going to be more interesting.
Yeah. What is it? I was going to ask you this. So you'd mentioned that you're working on some interesting projects. So what is the most exciting thing you're doing right now?
I'd say the most exciting thing I'm doing right now is taking some of these larger name performers, people that I would say most people know, be it young, I would say influencers, as well as I'll call legendary celebrity talent, taking one thing that they all have in common, which is some of the best storytelling in the world, bringing them into an environment that's small and letting, I would say, an intimate audience experience their storytelling. If I were to say what I'm working on now, we're launching a series of shows that I would say are MTV Unplugged meets Masterclass. So everyone from, I would call influencers, I would call people in the health space, the business space. Oh, don't get me wrong, you're going to be doing one of my shows. And bringing them together, but exposing them to an audience of people in rooms between 60 to 120 people. Even if these people sell out arenas, I'm more interested in the one-on-one interaction, because I strongly believe you learn more from having a beer with somebody than you do watching them on a big screen.
Correct.
So that's the next chapter.
You got to get in front of people.